Intelligent design. The idea that life must have required the help of an intelligent being to reach its current form is built on two pillars. 1. Irreducibly complex systems prove evolution is impossible. And 2. The fingers of design are apparent in life today. Previously, I've shown that irreducibly complex systems not only can evolve, but are predicted by the theory of evolution. Here, I'll tackle the concept of design. Common design, common designer. It's a phrase we've heard repeated ad nauseum from the intelligent design community. Every time scientists uncover a new piece of evidence supporting the theory of evolution, and more specifically, the idea that diverse groups of organisms share a common ancestor, the intelligent design advocates shout back, common design, common designer. A while back, I presented a logical proof that intelligent design is equivalent to creationism, in so much as the ultimate designer must have been a supernatural being, a god, and the Dover court case uncovered evidence showing the term intelligent design was simply copied and pasted into the creationist textbook of Pandas and People in place of the word creation. Despite their repeated denials that intelligent design is creationism, well, why should they be swayed by facts and logic now? This phrase itself reeks of monotheistic religion. Sure, they claim the intelligent designer could simply be an advanced race of aliens, which begs the question, where did those aliens come from? But the phrase common designer implies one designer. But let's for a moment ignore all that. Let's ignore the undeniable fact that intelligent design is evangelical Christian creationism disguised in a secular scientific term. And let's see how the phrase common design, common designer stands up on its own. At face value, it seems reasonable. Humans and chimps share 98.5% of their DNA, and both genomes contain endogenous retroviruses that have inserted in precisely the same locations. And barring a handful of exceptions, all life on Earth uses the same genetic code for storing protein sequences in DNA. Thousands of such examples have been presented by scientists over the past century and a half. Sure, this could be evidence that all life on Earth evolved from a common ancestor. But if they were designed by an infinitely powerful, infinitely intelligent being, isn't it reasonable to assume that being would simply use copy and paste when creating life, rather than design each organism from scratch? Come on, it's not like infinitely powerful means infinite imagination. Surely it would seem silly to assume the strategy that an all-powerful supernatural being would use when designing life. So why not take a look at things we know are designed and see how this reasoning holds up? Well, here are two paintings, both designed by Leonardo da Vinci. They clearly show elements of common design, and we know they have a common designer. Here are two cars, both designed by Ferrari. Again, they show elements of a common design, and we know they share a common designer. Finally, here are two houses designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. I think you get the point. Common designers can produce common designs. I don't think that was ever in question. But Da Vinci also made many drawings and designed numerous devices. Ferrari designed numerous touring coupes, along with a collection of wristwatches. Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Guggenheim, as well as designing numerous stained glasses. It's not like these are the only people making paintings, cars, and houses. Some paintings by Bonifacio, Pinturicchio, and Lippi are very similar to those of Da Vinci. Some cars by Porsche, Fiat, and Mercedes are similar to those by Ferrari, and buildings by Schindler and Neutra are similar to those by Wright. Amazing! Different humans can produce similar designs, and individual humans, mere mortals, can produce different designs. When scientists report evidence for evolution, they don't simply report similarities. Sure, all birds use feathers as a means of keeping warm. Common design, common designer. But mammals use hair, not feathers. Different design. Different designer? All insects have compound eyes. Common design, common designer. But mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish have non-compound eyes. Different design. Different designer? Eukaryotes have membrane-bound organelles in their cells, linear genomes, and genes fragmented by introns. Prokaryotes have no organelles, circular genomes, and contiguous genes. Birds lay eggs, placental mammals do not. Arthropods have exoskeletons, vertebrates have endoskeletons. Mollusks use hemocyanin to transport oxygen, while vertebrates use hemoglobin. Ferns shed spores, gymnosperms drop naked seeds, and angiosperms produce fruit. Different designs, different designers? It only takes a moment to realize that the phrase common design, common designer doesn't hold water. When we look at things we know are designed, like paintings, cars, and houses, we see that common designs can be produced by different designers, while different designs can be produced by the same designer. And these are designed by mere mortals with a finite imagination. The phrase common design, common designer also implies when you find evidence of different design, it should be the result of different designers. Of course, you'll never hear a creationist make that connection. Polytheism, anyone? So how exactly do scientists know life shares a common ancestor? It all comes down to the distribution of similarities and differences. For example, let's imagine God created these 7 organisms using the exact same sequence of DNA for one of their genes. Common design, common designer. Now, over time, mutations will occur randomly throughout these genes. Since the majority of mutations are neutral, meaning they don't harm the organism, but they also don't impart any benefit, these will randomly spread and be fixed in each population. After time, we're left with 7 sequences that each look very similar, but the important point is that the differences are independent. Mathematicians have developed algorithms that can determine the most parsimonious relationship between an array of sequences. It answers the question, what is the fewest number of events that must have occurred to give rise to what we see today? When applied to these sequences, we find exactly what we predict. All the sequences are independent. But now let's start with a single organism. Mutations will once again build up over time, but this time we allow the population to split, just like we see populations do in nature. Mutations that occur before the population splits will be inherited by both groups, but mutations that occur after the split will be independent. When we run these 7 sequences through the same algorithm, we now find the organisms are predicted to have evolved from a common ancestor. The sequences fall into a nested hierarchy. Why? Well, it's more likely that 16 mutations occurred in combination with the population splitting than 30 mutations occurring in precisely the same locations across 7 independent populations. All things being equal, the most probable explanation is the most likely to be true. Overall, the sequences in both experiments have the same degree of similarities, but it's the arrangement of the differences that matters the most. Simple DNA sequencing is enough to test the idea common design, common designer. To date, scientists have sequenced over 280 trillion base pairs of DNA and the genomes of more than 90 species of eukaryotes. Not only do individual genes have sequences that show nested hierarchies, but entire genomes show the exact same nested hierarchies. There is simply no explanation apart from a common ancestor that can account for this finding. This is as close to a mathematical proof of evolution as we will ever get. The phrase common design, common designer fails. It fails on its own when applied to objects we know are designed. It fails when trying to explain the differences we see across the millions of species we share the planet with. And it fails miserably in light of modern DNA sequencing when trying to explain the nested hierarchies seen across all organisms. Common ancestry is more than simply explaining the similarities seen between species, but the arrangement of differences as well. Common design, common designer fails, but nested hierarchies, common ancestor, doesn't. Sometimes reality just doesn't reduce to a catchy soundbite.